Is the loneliness real? Or is it just the ghost of everything I never gave myself? The sacrifice of self to spare aloneness, the lack of owning my own emotions. Sometimes they frighten me when those wounds cut open. I've allowed them to consume me. Identity stolen. The fear of becoming human. There's been this wild yearning for me lately. It itches the back of my hand, gnawing at me to scratch, like a pain that feels too good. I yearn for something outside of myself. Even when over a year ago, I decided that this year was going to be only just for me. But my heart desires to beat against someone else's skin, triggering me, pleading with me to take just a tiny sip of my past tendencies and to flirt a little with old thought patterns. So I found myself in moments of rummaging through this antiquated box of toxic behavior, searching for the remains of my value that might be hidden there. This done through sentences made personal, feelings being on edge, or small, petty arguments. What I was able to really find was the stunted pieces of me that seethed at the lack of emotional attention that I needed throughout my childhood. And in that box, I'd found the self that longed to be seen in my raw vulnerability, the self that craved emotional comfort, the self that fantasized 6 easy words of, "It's okay, I'm here, I'll listen," followed by a gentle hand on my back. But any kind of attention is still being seen, right? Even if seen with eyes that have no intention of keeping me or my heart safe. So even after this dedicated year, I still feel it, you know? The yearning, the ache in my inner child's soul waiting to come alive at the utter of my parents' lips telling me that it's okay, that I can let it all out, the pent-up anger, the enraged tears of rejection and neglect. Yet, all I can hear is the eggshell floors cracking around us, taunting me, telling me not to be a bother, to not add on to the burden of my parents, not to be too much, telling me that it'll be fine, eventually, as long as I'm a good girl. And good girls never take the risk of being heard or seen, because they are good, never yearning, never needing. But I mean, I'm doing the work, aren't I? I'm doing the journaling, the meditation, the crying, and the feeling, and sometimes I think there's a part of me that feels the safest in being so deeply conditioned to stay locked inside of myself, to be a good girl. Even when I am as open as I have ever been, even when I am bleeding out and allowing my wounds to dry up and crust over, even when I am going through the growing and healing pains. Sometimes I think that this part of me that I found in that damn box has made a home in this emotional constraint, and I am far too late to try and save myself now. I'll be honest. I've encapsulated this pattern behavior in other ways too. The cycle having given this inner part of me time to experiment with the different ways that I and others can digest the desperate attempts to find a love where the deepest parts of me can feel safe to be expressed, without contempt, without judgment. But I am never too proud to admit that I've flung myself in the arms of others too many times, while they've held me only just long enough to feel the curves of my body and then just drop me to fall all by myself, to feel all by myself. And then I'm alone again with all of these emotions rampant. And to me, I think that's one of the biggest fears I've developed, is feeling so much of my own feelings by myself that I am drowned and consumed by them. It sounds completely silly to say that out loud, because of course I would feel these emotions by myself. I mean, I'm the only one inside of my own body. I'm the only one inside of my own head. But really, honestly, it's the fear of not having anyone that I feel safe enough to share something so sacred and sensitive with. That stupid little fear of, if I do let everything that I feel come out and run wild, not knowing if they will still love me even after. But relentlessly, I would do it anyway. I would bleed out and pour into others, so much so that hope and disappointment started to feel the same. I'd empty my entire being for the sake of satisfying what I'd been yearning for all along, to try and collect some sense of emotionally intimate value that I hopelessly needed, yet only for this fear to come true again and again. It's like this part of me had been so addicted, so enticed by the pain and fear that it feels familiar, safe. It's all the same thing, isn't it? These anxiety-driven thought patterns had become deep, noticeable wounds in a monstrous and self-destructive cycle that manifested through the alternates of lovers, friends, and even family. A cycle fully established in where my inner child reaches for them, and thinking about it, perhaps it's their inner child that rejects me. And I would shamefully wonder why. Why do these awful waves of emotion swallow me whole and are the hungriest when I'm alone? Through this cycle, I tricked myself enough times to believe that my emotions are far too deep, far too vast, and far too much for me to wade. I had become the yearner and the rejecter now. My deepest needs and wants turned into my deepest fears. How funny. How cruel. I feared these emotions of mine because it was too much of a burden, remember? This was made clear by all of the rejection, all of the guilt, the shame, the neglect that was reflected back to me. But at the very same time, this was one of my greatest needs to becoming human. this was what I desperately needed from my mother, my father, those lovers, myself, to feel without disregard, without feeling ashamed or worrying that I would be taking up too much space or time, to feel completely, immeasurably. I used to confuse the desire for emotional intimacy with the passion of sex. I used it as a way to feel deeply and freely. I thought that's what it meant to be passionate. Passion. Strong and barely controllable emotion. And in the etymology meaning, it means to endure an ailment or an infliction. So back in the 1800s, passion was considered enduring an ailment, as if to feel was to endure. I used to believe that the way to be close to someone and for them to feel close to me was by a physical act of passion. This in particular, I thought it was a way to spark a feeling that was impossible to try and control the outcome of. An escape, rather. A taste of full, uncontrollable release. Never minding the occasional intense guilt that usually comes right after. But it was a similar experience to feeling any kind of emotion far too much anyway. And for a while, I lived in this. I owned it. It became a part of my self-concept. Believing that to feel deeply meant to endure an infliction. That it had to hurt a little and came with deep guilt immediately after. It was common. Normal. Yet, at the very same time, it was the bane of my sensitive existence. The belief that I've come to accept the lore of my hopeful and eventual fairy tale beginning. A self-destructive idea I embraced as my truth. A curse every princess, every good girl must endure at the desire to be known, seen, and felt. This behavior, this feeling, this curse had run on the remembrance and fear of rejection and loneliness for so long, too long, until I realized that I could want for and yearn for everything and everyone outside of myself until time's end. Seeking a connection and love outside of myself had become my identity, my safe space. But it wasn't until now that I remembered I am both the yearner and rejecter. I am both the dreamer and the observer, the internal and external. I am the love outside of myself that I seek, and I've always been. I realize that I can harbor all of this yearning and desire for passion and connection and emotional support through the external observation of myself. I am my parents and my past lovers. I am all of them. I am the passion that I seek and can be the radical acceptance of all that I am if I so decide. And I have decided. So now I understand that passion is an element of my desire that fulfills itself. The desire to feel any and everything as deeply as I can, as deeply as I am, without judgment or expectation or guilt or shame. That it isn't just fear or anger or pain that has to be felt so intensely, but it's also joy and gratitude and an overwhelming sense of safety and love and compassion too. Passion is what holds the duality and meaning of being profoundly human. To feel fully is the treasure of passion and a beautiful result of creating emotional intimacy and safety within yourself. So now, when my mind and heart try to trick each other into old patterns, when I want to look around in that old box again, I now understand that it is not a yearning for other people to fulfill this need, but rather a call for initiation of pursuit towards myself. A pursuit of inner understanding, the pursuit to feeling deeply and expressing it defiantly. So now I pursue myself. Now, for as long as I am yearning, I am finding and meeting myself and accepting it all. Now, I am actively learning how to surf those incredible waves of emotions. Now, I embrace the desire of this sacred need to fulfill passion. Now, I grow wings in rage. Now, I am thrashing and throwing fits through laughter. Now I am needing everything and selfishly giving it all to me. Now I'm saying fuck you to the fears of being seen, known, and felt. Now I am brave and discerned enough to know how to decipher my fears from my truest desires. Now I do it scared. Now I am free. And so now, here I am, unleashed.